Good morning. This is Tom, and this is Tom's Reading Room Show, and we're down in my workshop once again, and we're back to my Raspberry Pi little microcomputer, and I'm still learning. I'm just getting started, and these shows would just be me rambling and thinking out loud what I want to do. So take it or leave it, whatever. So where I'm at right now, I've done a lot of reading. I've read about, let me define read. Okay, when I say read a book, because I'm talking about technical books, I don't mean sitting down, starting on the first page, reading that page, and going to the next page, going to the next page. Not like you're reading a novel. For me, technical books are for scanning for information. So what I do is when I get a book, either a hard copy book or ebook, I will scan through the book to see if this book is going to provide me with the information I need. If it's an ebook or if it's my book, I will actually do bookmarks and mark things that I want to come back and read in detail, word by word, about that particular item. So I've gone through about 45 books in the past couple of weeks about the Raspberry Pi. So when I say go through, that means I've in some cases scanned them, in other cases I've actually bookmarked them, and then I've read portions of books. So the 45 is kind of a fictitious number. What I have found, especially for ebooks, now keep in mind, ebooks are pretty small in general. Not always. Some ebooks are where an author has taken a hard copy book that might be 200 or 300 pages and convert them into ebook. Excuse me. Let me get a drink here. Ebook format, and so it's the entire same size. Plus, he may have added links to web pages. So typically, though, the ebooks are pretty small, and you can usually read an ebook from page to page. I mean, from straight through like you would a novel in less than a half hour. To read the entire thing. It's just there's not that much content there. Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is, of the 45 or so books that I've gone through, I would say all but 3 were just duplicate information for the beginner, which I initially needed, and they were helpful. But once you've done that, you don't need that anymore. So I would say 40 of those books were just the same information presented a little differently, more links to other things. So once I read one good one, the other ones were just useless, not of any value to me. Then in the other category are the 3 or 4 books that I am still going through. I found one book that does go beyond that initial, how to get it started and set up, and starts delving into some details. So and that book actually was given to me by one of my subscribers. It's an ebook from Amazon, and he gave me a credit on Amazon, and I got that book, and I definitely want to thank him. I wish I could give you his name, but he wants to remain anonymous, so he knows who he is. Anyway, so I'm just now at this stage where I know how to hook up things, and I know how to generate a operating system or operating systems on the memory card, which is a micro SD card. Now, the beauty of the Raspberry Pi is that you can change operating systems really easy, and there's dozens of operating systems out there, or variations of an operating system. And the state I'm at right now is trying to decide which of the operating system out there is going to be the best as far as being applicable to other things I want to do and programs I want to run. And so that's where I'm at right now. And I have, and I mentioned it in my last video, that I have an SD card set up with a program called BerryBoot. It's a loader that loads other operating systems. And you can put on your SD card, you can put a number of operating systems on one card. That's the beauty of this bootloader. And what you do when you first start it up, you install BerryBoot on a card. That's very simple to do. It's just a copy of files over to a blank SD card. Then when it boots up in the Raspberry Pi, it gives you some setups. You do these setups about the system, your particular Raspberry Pi, and then it gives you a list of operating systems that it has that it can download for you and install on that card. And you can install more than one operating system. So what I did is I went through the list and I read the little blurb they had about each operating system, and I chose, I think, about 4 or 5 and had it download from the internet. So you have to have internet access on your Raspberry Pi at the time. It downloads it, puts it, installs it on the SD card, and then the next time you boot up, you can choose one of those operating systems if you added more than one. So right now I'll show you that again. I showed it to you briefly the last time. I'll show it to you again and show you where I'm at. Let me change the camera here and zoom in on the screen and hopefully not knock the camera over again. I knocked it over the other day and luckily I caught it and suffered some minor little bumps and bruises. Okay, whoa, I just kicked it that time. See if I can get this as big as possible without losing anything. Okay, so there's my monitor with my Raspberry Pi running right now. So it has booted, I think this is Raspbian. I think that's how it's pronounced. I could be wrong. Again, you know, I'm just learning, and basically these videos are just me talking out loud about what I'm going to do or what I'm doing. So bear with me. And the thing is, the other thing is, since I'm learning, this is all new to me. I'm not really teaching you anything unless you're really new too. So if you find that I'm making mistakes, please send me an email or a comment to correct me, because I know I'm making mistakes. So anyway, here we go. Now, let me have this reboot. So I'm going to shut down. And here's my options. I can shut down completely, I can reboot, or I can log out. So I'm going to reboot, which means it will restart the Raspberry Pi, just like as if you were rebooting your computer. And it will give me that bootloader, BerryBoot options again. So let's see. There's a mosquito in here. Oh boy, that's going to be bad. Okay, here it goes. So it's shutting down now. Now it's going to reboot. And now here is BerryBoot's menu, and you have just a few seconds, and here's all of the operating systems that I've installed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. I think it's about 6. And once you choose one, then the next time it boots, that's going to be your default, so that if you just let it boot and it counts down to 7 seconds or so, then it'll go into that operating system. So let's try that again. I think if you start looking at or trying to select them, it delays that 7 seconds or so. Let's see if that's the case. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm just going to select this one. And then let me see here, you can edit to menu. And I think that what that means is you can later add some more. And what I read was there is a number of choices that are included in BerryBoot initially, and then you can go in and modify this menu somehow. I don't remember exactly how, and you can add others. I haven't attempted that. So here's the one. Once I start deciding which one and moving around here, it stopped that countdown timer, which that's excellent way he did that. So now I can sit here and decide which ones I want. Now, and let's just talk about these for a second. Again, I don't know a whole bunch about them, but I'm learning. So we got even an Android KitKat operating system. Now, I've read that emulation of running Android is kind of slow. But the good news is this is the newer Raspberry Pi, which runs 4 times faster than the original, I think. So maybe those comments about Android KitKat running slow were based on one of those old cards. I don't know. Let's see. And then I have the Raspbian, which is, from what I've read, that's the most common operating system. And it'll probably be the one that I go with. Then and most of these are, what's the term I'm looking for? They're versions of Linux, of which there are lots of versions of Linux out there. So most of these are just versions of Linux. Fedora, I have played with that just a little bit when I was playing with Linux, so I'm familiar with that one. Ubuntu, that is a very popular one in the PC computer world to use as an operating system. It's very big. And again, it probably will struggle and have some speed problems with this microcomputer. Open Elect is basically a entertainment center, so that you can watch videos and listen to music. That's all it is. It's not an operating system itself. It's more of an entertainment system. So that's what that's all about. Puppy is another Linux version, which I've used a little bit too, and I liked it, but I think, again, it's kind of power hungry, so that version for this machine may be kind of slow. Again, that's the things I've got to find out, is which operating systems will work the best, both from a speed standpoint and from a compatibility with other programs that I want to add running on that particular operating system. And then we have Sugar. I'm not familiar with Sugar at all, so I thought I'd put it on there so I can look at it. So now at this point in BerryBoot, I can decide with this boot up which operating system I want. Now, like I say, to do this on a PC, you can do it, but it's a little more difficult to get it set up. This was really simple. All I did is download this BerryBoot. It was a zip file. I unzipped it, took those files that unzipped, copied them over to a blank SD. That was it. And then the initial configuration came up. I did that, and then I selected which operating systems I wanted, and here we are. So it's been booting up in Raspbian. I could be pronouncing that wrong. I don't know. So just for grins, because like I said, I read that it's kind of slow. I'm going to try this Android KitKat this time. Again, when I restart the card, I could try another one. So it's not like it wipes out the other operating systems. The other operating systems are still there. Now, the one thing I like about Linux and all these programs is they list all the things it's doing. I wish there was an option under Microsoft operating systems to do that. So when a boot hangs up, you can kind of see what it was doing. It would only be an option, which you would only use if you were having problems with your computer. Otherwise, it takes time to display that information. Okay, there's the Android symbol. I've seen that before on my phone. I assume it's still loading. Yeah, I have no mouse control yet. Oh, okay, while it's trying to load, the other thing that I'm struggling with, and I don't know, let's see if I can see I can't see it right now. Well, it's taking a long time. You saw that the other one, the Raspbian, okay, here we go. That came up right away. Unfortunately, the process Android has stopped. Well, that's not a good sign. It's still booting though. And the mouse is working kind of erratically. Matter of fact, I can't even get on that OK sign. There. Oop, I had it there for a second. This is like a game in itself, trying to click on OK. See all your apps touch the circle. Now I can't even get the darn OK to. Well, this is a no-go. I can probably take this off my list unless I did something wrong, because I can't control the mouse very good. See if tab works. Nope, tab doesn't work. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a few more seconds to see if it's still trying to install. Unfortunately, the process android.process.acore has stopped. That's probably pretty important. Yeah, I can barely control this mouse. And I can't click OK. Okay, we're going to abort this. And I don't know if it's just a fluke for this particular time. So, unfortunately, the Raspberry Pi does not have a reset button. So the only way to get out of something like this where it's hung up, that I know of, is cycle power. We'll try that one more time and then we'll mark that one off the list. That was Android. Give it one more try. It's stating send discover, and it tried that 3 times, like it was having a problem there with the booting. Again, well, that's different. Now that looks better. That's what I recognize from my tablets. But the mouse is still kind of flaky at best. Oh, there we go. I got past that. I didn't get an error message, but boy, this mouse is really slow. Oh, that worked. Oh. Choose some apps. The mouse is getting a little better now. So let's see something that's really simple. Should we jump in and try to use a browser? This would be interesting. Website not available. Well, that was a fail. I do have my dongle. I'm using a Wi-Fi dongle down here in my workshop because I don't have an internet direct connection. So it may be dependent on having an internet direct connection and not using the Wi-Fi. So that could be that fail. So let's go down here to home. The mouse is working a little better. So it's working. And like I say, maybe the internet connection has to be a direct network connection, not Wi-Fi. Maybe it doesn't have the drivers for my little Wi-Fi dongle. That is one thing that I have noticed about these various operating systems is only a few of them have the drivers, apparently, for the Wi-Fi dongle that I'm using. And like I say, I don't have a direct wired connection to my router down here in my workshop, so I have to use Wi-Fi. So that's a limiting factor right there. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. One more thing I want to show you before I stop this recording is, let me get up and move the camera without knocking it over. Okay, here we go. We're going to zoom out here. Okay, the one thing that I'm struggling with right now is and I'll zoom in on it. Whoops, gotta move the camera a little bit. Is the configuration of the hardware. This is typically a setup, and the kit I bought, and the reason I bought a kit is because I knew nothing about this. I didn't want to buy a card and a case and a power supply and all this stuff and try to get the right combinations. So I just opted for a kit. I'm told that's not the way to go because typically the kits are much more expensive than the individual parts. And like I say, I'm assuming that's partly because they've done the integration of the parts and know that it works together as a whole. Anyway, because of the way this is laid out, it takes out my whole workshop, my workshop bench on this side. I've got another bench on the other side. I've got another bench I can't get to, and I've got a bench over there that's loaded. But anyway, this bench is the only open bench I got. And this thing takes up the whole bench because of the way it's laid out. So the next thing I need to do, even before I decide on an operating system, is I need to find a way to position, mount, whatever you want to call it, this out of the way. Because right now, I don't need to get to it. So I can tuck it away, tuck these wires away so that I can leave it connected and set up and then have my workbench back. And then, when I want to do something else, I can do that. When I want to come back to this, I just turn it on and it's good to go. So that's the next thing I've got. Next problem I need to solve is where to put this thing and how to mount it. I have to keep in mind, I think the only restriction is going to be keeping it someplace where it can run cool, so I don't, stick it in a corner or someplace and get it overheating. I don't feel any heat on this case right now, but of course I've only been running it for a short period of time this morning, so I don't know how much heat it puts out and how much cooling it needs from the standpoint of if you're operating it constantly, continuously, without turning it off. So anyway, that's the show for today. If you enjoyed this show, be kind and give me a thumbs up. You don't have to. Again, I'm marking these show titles with R Raspberry Pi. RPI, I believe it is, or something like that. One little 3-letter acronym, so that when you come to my YouTube channel or you get a notice about a new video, you can see that little thing on the title and say, oh, that's Raspberry Pi. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm not going to bother watching it. So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.